Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Sam Fitton.
Hello and welcome everyone to the very first solo live event. I am incredibly excited to be here. Hi, it's actually my fade out. But I'm extremely excited to be here to present the very first solo live event and to hopefully give you an idea of what we'll be covering with these amazing updates that we have planned. And honestly, we have some incredible brand new features to show you, some updates to existing features as well, and stuff that honestly has completely changed how I even personally use SOLOstudio Pro and Solo. In fact, I just used one of the brand new features to cue that music intro for myself. So let's dive straight into things. If you have any questions, this is really important actually, if you have any questions during this event, just to the side of me, I think that way, there is a big box where you can ask questions as soon as we can. If you are watching this on catch up on our YouTube channel, please don't type them in that box because it doesn't exist. Instead, leave them in the comments below this YouTube clip and you'll be able to obviously post those comments and we'll try and get back to as many of you as we can, as quickly as we can. Now, of course, we're broadcasting here from our offices in Manchester in the UK, so hello to wherever you are in the world. I really do appreciate you tuning in and watching this. And if you can't tell, and I'm going to say it again, I am very, very excited. So I think now I need to obviously introduce what I believe it is the most reliable, to my knowledge. It can think on its feet. It can change and adapt to how you perform on stage as a performer. It can, even when things go wrong, it can correct those things almost and cue the right thing at the exact right moment. It's definitely the most powerful, and that's because it's called Jeff. Jeff is without doubt the most powerful of sound cueing systems. He's a real human being, not this guy actually, he's AI generated. But the human being is undeniably the most powerful sound cueing device you could possibly ever have. But if you're not lucky enough to have Jeff in your life, then thank goodness there's Solo. So, we have had some incredible feedback already about Solo. We only launched at Blackpool Magic Convention in 2023. We exhibited in 2022 first to demo the technology, and then we completely reinvented it for 2023. So we're really, only 4 months old. We're the new kids on the block. But seriously, personally, I've been blown away. I've been really humbled and taken aback by all the incredible feedback that we've had. And I just want to share some of these with you. So for a start, Adam Wilbur here. Solo is a perfect example of clever and much needed thinking in the art. Totally blew my mind. One of the most revolutionary devices that has hit the magic industry from Craig Petty, so thank you to both of them. And this one as well, which I really like, is finally understood what Solo does. That's absolutely genius. And that was Joshua Riley, who co-created IQ Pro. But this is my favorite of everything that's been shown to me so far. And thank you, Chris, for posting this. I love this because this is how I imagine Solo would be used by real performers in the real world to up their production value. And you can read that quote now. You can see I love that Solo is just being used in the thick of it, amongst his routine. And don't worry, there's nothing wrong with his iPad. I've blurred that so you can't see the names of his tracks or his routines, just to give Chris a little bit of privacy there. But this really took me aback because it made me realize that the thing I dreamt up was really being used the way I'd intended it to be used by real performers in the real world. And I am absolutely thrilled by the number of people that have really adopted Solo and ran with it and started to create incredible shows. Now, speaking of our Solo users, unbelievably, we have already over 100 Solo users worldwide. From Australia to Belgium, France to the USA, we're literally shipping Solos everywhere, and they're being used from after-dinner corporate dinner speakers to private house parties to even on Las Vegas stages, which again is even more humbling and mind-blowing for me. But what's absolutely insane is that, believe it or not, we have over 800 users of our SOLOstudio apps across both iOS and Android, which again, totally mind-blowing. And when I see the stats on iOS and Android and see that those apps have been used over 6,000 times, yeah, it's staggering. So it's quite clear that we are moving, thankfully, in a very upwards direction, and at some point I might break even. So we've obviously, I should actually show you, Solo is in my pocket, I used it earlier. If you've not seen Solo yet, this is Solo, this tiny little thing, 38 grams. So I'm gonna pop that down for a sec because I'm really proud to have recently partnered with Klarna. Klarna is making Solo much more accessible to many more performers by enabling payment plans on our website. You can actually pay in 30 days, so you can have a delayed payment option on our website, or you can pay in 3 interest-free payments, which is great. Obviously, it helps spread the cost for what is an unbelievable piece of kit, but it really does help those people that need it. So Klarna is available if you're interested. So the reason we're all here, the updates. This is going to be an overview of what's to come. A deep dive will follow in our support section. However, for now, we just want to tell you about all the awesome things that we've been working on that are going into this next huge update that will be rolled out to both iOS and Android simultaneously. So let's get into it. Updates. Now, our updates, this is things which were already in the app that needed a bit of tweaking. They needed upgrading, and so these are the updates. Let's dive into the first one. That is, of course, our next button, or the Go tag. Now, we had lots of feedback on this, and first thing we did was change the name, because quite frankly, it was getting confusing. Everyone calls it the Go button, so we've renamed it Go Mode, and Go Mode basically now is the name of this feature across the entire app. But not just, we haven't just changed the name, obviously. We've also done some jiggery-pokery behind the scenes to make Go Mode work so much better. And I mean so much better. It's easier to use, it's much more intuitive, it makes sense, it's not confusing, and all of a sudden it has completely changed the functionality of Go Mode, made it so much, just so much easier really, if I'm being completely honest. And it all comes down to these 2 options. Now you'll get these options obviously in your app. You'll be familiar with these options. This is, of course, override and double tap. Now, they now control each individual track's reaction to the Go button. In other words, if override is enabled on a track, then you can start a new track whilst a currently playing track fades out. And you can use double tap as almost a Go button protection mode. So if a currently playing track has double tap enabled, you have to use the double tap feature before then progressing onto the next track. So that can be really helpful if you have a track that you definitely don't want to accidentally stop using the same prop, or using obviously the Go tag. But if you do want to stop a track and start a new track, you can do that now with just one pass of the Go tag. Whereas before, you had to do it twice. So to give you a little demo of that, I've got some stuff set up here on the iPad, and I'm going to grab my Go tag. Here's one I programmed earlier. So let's dive into that. So hopefully you can all see my iPad screen here. And in the iPad screen, I'm going to go into settings, and I'm going to make sure that my Go tag is assigned. And yes, I'm pretty sure my Go tag is assigned, so I'm just going to try and assign it actually. And yes, okay, cool. So that is actually assigned. Amazing. So now if I was to play a piece of music, and hopefully Aaron, who is behind the scenes here, controlling all the audio for me, can make sure this doesn't blast your eardrums out. But if I play this track, you can see that the next track is set to override. And if I go into this track, you can see that double tap isn't enabled, which means when I scan this, it jumps to the next track, fades out the current track, and starts the next one for us automatically. Now if I go into this track and enable double tap, now if I was to try and scan the Go tag, it's not going to work because double tap is enabled. So now I'd have to hold this over Solo, and obviously once the 2 seconds has passed, it would fade it out. Now when I scan again, it will jump to the next track, and so on and so on. And obviously, as you can see, the next track is set to override, so now I can scan this and fade out the currently playing track. Please don't judge our music choices. These are all royalty-free. Use good music for your shows. So there you go. There's just a really quick overview of how that Go mode has changed and how you can now easily and intuitively control the next track and how it behaves with the rest of the tracks in your show. Now, the next thing, play bar scrubbing. Now, this is something that Android users had, but for some reason, iOS didn't. It was a bug that we realized after we'd released, and it was doing my wicking. And so we managed to get it fixed. So iOS users, if you're not sure what that is, that's this bar that appears along the bottom of the app. That's what the play bar is. You can now drag that with your finger up and down to your heart's content and release it, and it will play from wherever you released your finger. So that's the play bar scrubbing. We also had a bit of a UI cleanup, which I realize does sound like you're getting treated for some sort of sexual disease. However, the UI cleanup has basically unified and just made it all much neater inside the app. So what I mean by that is that all of the menu options now that you'll see have all been made exactly the same as what you'd expect inside a queue or a track, so that obviously it's just nicer, it makes everything look good, right? Level shift feedback. Now, this is a big thank you to two people, both Harry Cruz and to Aaron Calvert, who suggested this feature. Now, if you use level shift or ducking, what it does is it enables you to take the volume of your music from a maximum to a preset minimum. Now, the difficulty was when you scanned the level shift tag, you only got the same feedback you would get if you were shifting it up or down, which made it difficult to tell whether or not you were shifting the music up or down. If you were trying to do anything pre-show, it was difficult, or in rehearsal. So both those two people suggested, why don't you just get a double buzz when you scan level shift and the volume goes up? And I thought, yeah, that's a really good idea. So I implemented it. Now when you scan the level shift tag, trying to get my words out, level shift tag, it will now take the volume up as you would expect, but it will also give you a double buzz to let you know that's what it's done. If you want to bring the level down, you scan and you'll get one buzz to bring it down, two buzzes to bring it up. So thank you again to Aaron Calvert and Harry Cruz for suggesting that. Also, I should mention a firmware update of your hardware, your Solo hardware, is required for that to work. So we'll be announcing how you're going to do that firmware update at a later date at home yourselves. So that won't happen immediately once you update the app, but it will be coming, don't worry. We've increased the delay time of a queue. So previously you could only delay a track for 120 seconds or 2 minutes. We've now increased that to 600 seconds. Now, don't worry, you don't have to tap that little plus symbol 600 times to get a 10-minute delay. You can just push and hold the plus symbol, and it will take you all the way up to 600, rapidly escalating through the numbers so that you can choose what exact time you would like to set the delay for. Now, some of you might be thinking, why the hell would I want a delay that long? Well, when you see some of the new features we're about to announce, it will become clear. But we've updated it anyway so that now you do have that ability. The tile type icon. So what is this? Well, what I mean by the tile is the little square that's created on the home page or on the main screen of the app, which shows you obviously the cues that's been imported or the track that has been imported. It looks like this. Yep. Again, please don't judge my music choices. I love a bit of ABBA, who doesn't? So as you can see, the tile looks almost identical, except what we've done is we've added in this little symbol. This little symbol, little music note there, as you can see, just tells you that this is an audio file. And obviously, because of that, you know that it's just going to play audio, and you know that's what it does. So it's really simple, really intuitive. You can just glance at your iPad or your phone, and you can see exactly what each tile does. So that was that. Perfect. So here we go. That was the updates or the upgrades. But now we're talking about the new features. Now we're talking about the good stuff, the reason why you really came here. And yeah, this is quite exciting. And I'll tell you why. We've spent a lot of time listening to your feedback. We created Solo Lab to collect all of the incredible feedback people gave us after Blackpool, during Blackpool, and obviously since. I've been inundated with messages from pretty much every angle. People asking me how to do certain things, could we add this, could we add that, could we change this? And ultimately, we have created what I think are some of the best features that we could possibly bring forward to this. So I'm really excited to share with you these. The first thing is multiple shows. This has got to be the most requested feature by any single person when it comes to solo, and now it is possible. Multiple shows uses in the top left corner, you may have got a sneaky glimpse when I did the little iPad preview before, but it uses this little symbol up here. This is our comedy and tragedy theatre masks. They control the shows. So I'll enlarge it so you can see a little bit clearer. This little symbol gives us so much ability. I cannot explain why. Because when you click it, it opens up this menu. Now, you can create as many shows as you like inside SOLOstudio Pro. Now, inside there, you can see I've just got 3 shows at the moment. Now, you could scroll that and it will become a scrollable list if you have more than what fits on your screen. And as you can see, you can name, rename, and delete those shows as you see fit. But most importantly, you can switch between shows in just 2 taps. In other words, you can completely change what show you're performing or what music you're performing in 2 taps, which is pretty insane. But what's really insane is that the same prop can have multiple cues across multiple shows. Now, I know just off the bat that sounds kind of crazy. What do you mean, Sam? Well, picture this. You're performing at a corporate event and you want your invisible deck, say, to trigger some nice corporate-y music. But tomorrow, you've got a kids show and you're also using the invisible deck. Well, with just 2 taps to switch between your corporate show and your kids show, that same pack, that same invisible deck triggers the different piece of music from your kids show and doesn't trigger what's in your corporate show. So this adds never-before functionality, combining both the power of solo, which is ultimately its best feature, which is this idea that you can cue anything at any time, and combine that with switching between shows means that, means that you can basically have multiple cues being triggered by the same thing, same object, same gesture, doesn't matter what it is. So here we go. Let's do a quick live demo to show you this. Let's do it. So, as you can see, I've got a show here on my iPad. This is called Live Show. Now, Live Show is pretty cool. I'm going to create a new show, though. So I'm going to go create new show just by clicking, obviously, our little theatre mask. And I'm going to rename this to, let's call it Live Show 5. I don't know why I said 5, but it sounds good. I'm going to click OK. And this creates a blank, brand new show for you to do whatever you want. I'm going to bring in a new track, and we're going to scroll down, and I'm going to go to my royalty-free music so that YouTube doesn't kick this video off YouTube. Cheers, YouTube. And we'll go for Raving Energy Faster. That sounds great. And I need a tag to assign to this, so I'm going to use this pack of cards, which has a tag inside the case. So I'm going to go into here, and I'm going to assign a tag, and I've assigned a tag. I've got a fade set on this, but I'm going to turn the fades off just so it kicks in straight away. And hopefully then when I scan this, it plays our Raving Energy track. Let's stop that. However, if I go into a different show, like Live Show, and I assign this to the boogie track, I can assign that same tag, and as you see, I don't get the error that you would expect if you were adding the same tag to multiple tracks. And that's because now when I go back to here, it will only cue the file that's inside this show, which is pretty crazy, right? So now I can just stop that, and this is how quick it is. I tap Show, Live Show 5, and I scan, and I now immediately start playing the track that's inside that thing. It's just incredible. This is game-changing for me. It means that I don't have to reprogram everything. I don't need to delete tags or add tags. I can just add a new show, create a new track there that I want, and then immediately jump straight into performing. So this is amazing for me. Let's stop that. Perfect. So let's go back to our live show. Perfect. So one of the things that has separated SOLOstudio from other apps, I believe, is its simplicity of its user interface. We've tried to make it as intuitive and as easy as possible for anyone to jump straight into creating somewhat complex show cues, but in a really easy and easy to understand way. We're invested in developing how you can use and modify your cues within the app. So today we're bringing you millisecond precision track trimming that allows you precise control over the exact moment your cue begins with a new feature called Advanced Track Trim. Now, this feature was requested by a number of people, and it's easy to see why. Because we know how important precision is. You know, that's why features like perfect timing were developed. But now, with Advanced Track Trim, you can now trim your cue down to the nearest hundredth of a second using just your finger and the app. Obviously, you need the app, but just your finger. I'm going to show you straight away how this works because it is so simple. So we're going to dive straight back into the iPad. And as you can see, I've got all my tracks here. So I'm just going to go into Flying Kerfuffle. What a great name for a track. And as you can see at the bottom of the track settings now, you'll be familiar with these track settings, but you can see at the bottom, there used to just be this waveform at the bottom, this massive one here. And it was really hard when dragging your finger across to get the exact moment. But as you can see, there are these two extra boxes above the track trim. Now, those two boxes show us the exact point that your finger is touched on, okay? So you can see here, that red line there on that little box above where I was moving has stopped just there. And now if I drag from the other end, you can see as well, I can do it from the other end to get my in points and my out points. But if I want to really fine tune this, I'd need those boxes to be scrollable as well, right? So that's what we did. These boxes can be scrolled with your finger as well. And you can see the precision using the in and out timing markers above those scroll areas. You can see exactly where you're trimming a track to with absolute precision. So now I know to the hundredth of a second when that music will start, which is pretty crazy. Now, like I say, there is the in-out start points there, which you can see. It says in 56.313, and then the out, we've got 258.540. Now, if I was to just shrink this right down, you can see that it's now changed to the out point, which is 1 minute, 6 seconds, 983 milliseconds. And of course, then, on the far right-hand side, you can see the total track length, which is in green. And that tells us, as the name suggests, the entire track length. In this case, just over 10.5 seconds. And that is Advanced Track Trim. So I hope you enjoy using that feature because it is genuinely brilliant. So from day one, SOLOstudio has allowed you to trigger multiple cues with one prop, or a gesture or a trigger of some kind. And it worked. But we knew we could do better. And we have spent a long time getting this to work exactly how it should. And I am so proud to introduce this next feature because version 2 of SOLOstudio Pro will include groups. Genuinely, groups have changed how I use SOLOstudio Pro. It allows you to keep multiple cues organized inside a really intuitive, really easy group model. And that group model is, I'm just going to dive in and show you, but essentially, when you actually go into it, you can see on the slides here, you can see that I've basically got a group tile key, and that group tile is created by pressing the plus icon in the top right-hand corner of the icon, of the iPad, sorry, or of your app on your device. And when that's created, you can see there is that little folder icon. Do you remember me telling you about icons earlier? This is why we did it. There's a little folder icon, and that tells you it's a group rather than obviously a music track. Now, inside that group, it's very simple, but there is these settings, and that's what the settings looks like in a snapshot. Now, you can see on the right-hand side there is a list of cues, all individual cues that you can bring in, which will allow you to essentially do the most amazing things. Because you can now layer tracks, you can delay each one, remember mentioning the 10-minute delay, and you can stack all these cues in place, allowing you to ultimately create a bespoke routines inside a group. And this is, honestly, we're going to dive into the iPad because I need to show you this in real life. So let's go straight to the iPad. I'm going to switch shows to Live Show 2, which I believe has my groups in it. Now, do you remember me mentioning earlier how I cued myself on stage by doing the groups? Well, this is how I did it. I'm going to show you the group that I set up just minutes before we went live, and it really was minutes, trust me. And I can show you exactly how that works. But we're going to dive into this first group you can see that I've got here next to Boogie Party, which I've cleverly called Group. So when you go into this group, you can see there are currently 3 cues on the right-hand side here. Those 3 cues would currently play simultaneously. In other words, all 3 of those tracks would play at the same time. You can delay a group, you can loop a group, so you can have all those things just continue forever or on a set number of loops. As you can see, we've got 3 and we can go all the way up to infinity after 10. You can assign tags to a group, obviously, so that you can trigger that entire group with one prop. You can obviously override so that then when that group starts, any currently playing tracks or groups get faded out automatically. You can double tap, obviously, great feature, allowing you to stop that group at the same time. And we can autoplay next cue, which will allow us, when that group finishes, to automatically play the next group or the next cue. So there really is so much flexibility, so much, honestly, that you can do with this. Yeah, I love it. But as you would expect, on the right-hand side here, this is really cool. If you want to reorder this cue list, it's dead hard, really, really hard. What you do is you push and hold the cue with your finger, and then you just move it up. It's so difficult. But in all honesty, that's it. I've now just changed the order of those cues, right? And I can go into those cue settings. As you can see, there are some features that are disabled. In the deep dive, I'll explain why that is, mainly due to conflicts with the group settings. So depending on your group settings, we'll change what settings are available inside each cue in that group. But as you can see, I can get perfect timing, override, delay, loop, fade in and out, and obviously I've got my advanced track trim in there as well. So all those features are available inside there, and you can set these up however you like. So if I was to cue this group right now, we're going to end up with an absolute car crash of sound, but ultimately it will play all 3 of those tracks simultaneously. In other words, we've ended up with a bit of a car crash. But as some of you have probably already thought, hang on a minute, there's that delay function. If, for example, I just deleted this track, just for the sake of it, and just used 2 tracks, if I was to set this to have a delay of, say, 4 seconds, and I was to go into this one, and I was just going to make this track last, let's say, 3 seconds, 4 seconds-ish, something like that. Now, obviously, when I trigger this group, it will trigger all of these cues simultaneously, but the first one will play first. Then obviously it'll stop briefly and the next one will start. So hopefully we can all hear this, but that will play. And then our next one begins, yeah? So with that delay in place, it enables you now to actually put simultaneous cues or pieces of music with time delays in one group, which is honestly a game changer. Now, I don't know if you remember my intro, it was kind of cheesy, I apologize about that, but that looked like this. So inside that, which obviously this group I called intro, you can see I've got my Pearl and Dean intro from the 90s cinema, for those of you in the UK. I don't know if that was in the States, but it was definitely a UK thing. I had that piece of music, and as you can see, I've got new stage intro, which is the voiceover, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage. And inside that, you can see that I've got my delay set to 7 seconds and no trim. And then obviously I had this track, which was my walk-on music, and I had that set to a delay of 15 seconds, which enabled me to basically layer all 3 of these tracks into one neat group. I assigned a tag to that, and that tag was very cleverly called intro, and I've left it on the table over here, but literally just one tag scan before I walked on stage, and immediately I'd cued that music. And because override was set on this group, as you can see there, it meant that I could walk onto stage knowing that my intro group was fading out the background music that was playing on loop as you joined this live. So yeah, groups, they've opened up so much. So, what do I mean about things playing kind of simultaneously and things like that? Well, we're going to get on to that because we didn't stop there. I knew there was more that you could do with these groups, and this is what took the most amount of time. Honestly, I think we had about 25 different variations of the app in different states to try and get this to work, and a hell of a lot of bug fixing. But like I say, we didn't stop there. You see, it's all well and good keeping things tidy and neat and organized and having these layers and tracks playing on top of one another. But what if you could use that order? What if, whilst exploiting one of Solo's best features, which is this any queue at any time, you could also exploit the order that's inside this group of queues to make your life even easier? So we introduced a feature which is essentially group go mode. So imagine the go tag that you've had for all of your tracks. You can now turn the tag that is assigned to a group into a go tag for, which is mind-blowing, for a group. So basically, it's a localized go tag for a group of tracks inside a group. So to kind of give you some use cases for that, what if you wanted to, I don't know, let's say you wanted 5 different pieces of walk-on music, all controlled by the same tag. So for example, my walk-on music is always on my right sleeve. So when I gesture, I'm triggering that walk-on tag. But obviously it only plays one track at the moment, or it did. Because ultimately now, that tag can be assigned to a group, and that group can have go mode enabled. And with go mode enabled, it now works its way sequentially rather than simultaneously through each one of those queues. And it's dead simple. It uses this setting, the go mode inside the group. Now, when that is in its off state, this is essentially what happens. Now, if you imagine the number ones are all the priority of the queues. So basically, all of those queues fire at the same time. So obviously based on its individual track settings of those queues, but they all fire at once. Whereas when you enable go mode, they fire sequentially. So now we have Q1, Q2, and Q3 that will all trigger sequentially on tag scan 1, tag scan 2, and tag scan 3 of the group tag when go mode is enabled. So this is pretty awesome. I'm going to have to try and show you this because it is honestly brilliant. I'm going to create a brand new tag for this. So we're going to go into this group. We're going to dive into the iPad. I'm going to create a few more tracks in here. Let's do that. So let's just go for 3 for now. And I've got a tag. It's one of our blank RFID cards, which you can write on if you're interested on the website. And I'm going to write on here group because I am a sophisticated person and I like to keep things really high tech. So we have written group on here, and I'm going to assign this tag to that group. So now if I was to queue this, and I've just noticed there's a delay on there, we don't want a delay on. If I was to scan this, all of them queue at the same time, and you can see that very visually, all of them queue at the same time. That one's just stopped because it's got it's a very short track, but you can see it's an absolute car crash. We don't want that. So we're going to stop that group. I'm going to go back into this. I'm going to make this track a little bit longer. We're going to apply some fades, and I'm going to set this one to override with no fades. And I'm going to set this one to override. And you'll see why I'm doing this, because override, remember, changes the go mode tag's behavior. And because this group tag is about to become the group go mode tag, we now have the same rules in play that you would have with the normal go tag. So I'm going to enter go mode, and as you can see, that disables double tap. There's a very good reason for that, and that's because inside these tracks, double tap has now become available, because obviously you can use double tap in go mode with a queue. So in other words, you can have that double tap enabled. Now I'm not going to enable it in this instance, but we're going to give this a whirl. So when I scan this, as you can see, track 1 begins to play, and there it is. That's Q1. Now if I was to scan this again, you would see Q2 begins as Q1 now in that group stops playing. And then I'm going to do the same thing again on the 3rd scan. You can see I'm now playing Q3, and obviously it's moved along. Now what's really cool about this is you can now loop this. So the next time this scans, it goes back to the beginning, which is amazing. But because that track wasn't set to override, it will overlay. Obviously I could set it to overlay if I wanted to. But bearing in mind the next one is set to override, it will now stop both of those two. So you have got so much control and you can play with so many different possibilities. I'm just going to stop this now because let's face it, we don't want music playing all the time. But as you can see, this group go mode is genuinely incredible. It allows, like I say, a localized group go mode tag in play so that you can queue sequential queues all neatly nestled inside one group. Oh, man. Oh, and yeah, as before, if you want to move a group, you just drag and hold it, and that changes. And for those of you that were thinking it, yes, the normal Go tag works through a group. So if a group is in Go mode and you're using the regular Go tag, the main one that you set in the main app settings, it will make its way from Boogie Party, it'll go through the intro, and then it will make its way sequentially through the queues in that group, which is pretty mind-blowing. So it automatically starts working its way through, and then it will go on to the next queue on your main app screen. So that is group Go mode. Whew. Now, this is something genuinely awesome, and this was a requested feature that I really got excited about. And I got excited about it because it opens the door to so many possibilities. And I'm just going to dive in and share with you this. This is audio cues from a URL. In other words, you don't need the file on your iPad. You can automatically play a track that is stored somewhere on the internet. Now, of course, you do require an internet connection for this to work. I actually, ironically, don't have an internet connection right now on this iPad because the Wi-Fi in this office building decided to crash on me. However, I am going to show you how to set it up and how it would work, and then we'll dive straight into it. So let's just go straight into the demo. You maybe noticed it before, but I'm going to create a new queue. So I'm going to go in the top right corner and hit this. And you can see there is the URL option. Now that URL option creates a URL tile. You notice how it's got a little link symbol rather than the folder or the notes. Again, makes it easy for you to see. Obviously, we might want to rename this to, I don't know, finale, right? Which obviously then means that when you go back to the track tile in the main settings, you can see what it is. You can see that it's still a URL, even though obviously you've changed the name from URL to whatever you want it to be. Now, you can see it pretty much looks exactly the same as a normal track settings, except where you would expect to see the advanced track trim now, you've got the URL option. Now, of course, I need a URL to paste into here, so I'm going to go down into my notes. Here's one I prepared earlier. And this link here, I'm going to copy this link, and I'm just going to drop it inside SOLOstudio. So I'm just going to click paste. And you will get a prompt off Apple to tell you, are you sure you want to paste information? Yes, we do. So we want to allow the paste of information. And you can see I'm linking here to a direct MP3. Now, you can link directly to the file itself or to the page that holds that MP3. So, for example, that page could be, I don't know, /2020/02/. Now, so long as there was only one MP3 file stored on that web page or at that URL, it will play that MP3. So this is really cool because it basically means now that you can play live content from the internet. This isn't something that's pre-downloaded to your iPad, it's live content. So I'm going to click back from this. Now I know exactly what's going to happen in a moment. I'm going to tap this tile to trigger it, and when I do, it's going to throw up an error and say, hey Sam, you need the internet. Which is true, because if I tap this, you can see it immediately goes red. Solo just goes, what are you playing at? It goes bright red, and that tells me that there's no internet connection. So that's what would happen if you don't have internet. You can dismiss that by tapping it, or you can easily just master fade out, and it will also get rid of that red warning flag. And that's why that's there, to tell you, in case for whatever reason, during a show, the song doesn't play when you cue it, you know why, and it's because there was no internet connection, okay? So very important, you require the internet for this. But in reality, what would happen is that song would go yellow, it would buffer for about half a second, and then it would begin playing that track stored at that location. Now, like I say, we'll do a proper deep dive into this in the support section, obviously, of our website, or create a new video, so you can see this in action. But why have I bothered doing this? What got me so excited about this? Well, I'm very, very happy to announce that I actually spoke to a customer, a solo customer. In fact, he owns two solos because one wasn't enough for him. A man called Jonathan Levitt. Now, some of you may recognize the name Jonathan because basically, not just the name Jonathan, obviously I probably know quite a few Jonathans, but probably Jonathan Levitt's name because he is the creator of The Stranger. Now, The Stranger is an incredible app, and we have worked with Jonathan to integrate our technology with Solo into The Stranger and vice versa. Now, this gets a little bit crazy because The Stranger allows integration with an app called Ellipsis. And some of you may well use Ellipsis in your shows. It is mind-blowing. Ellipsis allows the user to go to a website on their phone and to find any music track they want. So they'll search for the lyrics for, let's say, Billie Jean, Michael Jackson. And they select a random word from that page, and you read their mind and tell them what word they're thinking of. Except what's happening in the background is the Stranger app has taken the name of that song, downloaded the MP3 file, and uploaded it to a server. And that server link is the same, and it is always the same, which means you can take that unique URL that is yours, place it inside SOLOstudio, and every time that track is queued, we're live pulling that new song every time you perform that act. So think about this from a staging perspective. An audience member on their phone thinks of a song, goes to the page, they look up a lyric, you read their mind, and then all you do is pick up a CD off the table, and your sound system now plays the song that they're thinking of. This is what this opens up. It is genuinely mind-blowing. I created a very similar act many years ago for Aaron at the Edinburgh Fringe, and my God, if this technology was available then, it would have been so much easier. I wouldn't have had to have spent about 3 weeks in the wings of a show. Instead, now you don't have to rely on a sound tech, you can do this yourself, which is absolutely insane. So if you don't have The Stranger or Ellipsis, look into it because you can use this URL queue function to genuinely blow minds using your sound system and your equipment that you're already carrying to gigs with you on stage, whether it's obviously at someone's private house party, on a Las Vegas stage, it doesn't matter. It works exactly the same way, and it's just so easy. So that is audio cues from URLs. So when are all these updates going to be available? Well, the 16th of June, Friday to be precise. Why am I giving you a few days notice though? Why don't I just push out the release right now? Well, that's because, to be quite honest, this is a huge update. And there is kind of some bad news here, and I'm just going to break it to you. Ultimately, when we send this update out, when you click update, it will completely reset SOLOstudio Pro. It has to. The infrastructure of how SOLOstudio Pro was built needed to be vastly upgraded. And as part of that process, in iOS particular, it will destroy links to your existing media files. So to stop that from being awkward or happening, we've completely reset it. So when next time you open SOLOstudio Pro, it will be a blank slate. I'm really, really sorry for that. I genuinely am. We tried everything possible to stop it happening, but there was just no way Apple would allow it to happen without us breaking those links to your media files. So make a note of all of your media files that you've imported, the timings of them, any particulars, especially if you've got any very specific timings involved, because you're not going to be able to save those. They're going to be eradicated. Sorry, I told you I was going to be blunt. And they're going to disappear when this new update arrives. That's why I'm giving you a few days notice so that you can prepare for that, you can make notes before we roll out this huge update, and as soon as you click that update button, Solo will be upgraded to version 2. And don't get me wrong, it is worth it. I've had to remove so much work off my iPad, it's untrue, but it has been worth it for the groups alone, let alone all the other features that we're releasing. So that is the big update, and like I say, it is coming on the 16th of June, okay? 16th of June, we will roll that out. You'll get a notification on your iPhone. It'll ask you if you wish to update. Make sure you update, obviously, but before you do that, make sure you make a note of, obviously, all of your tracks and settings. So, what's coming soon? What are we still working on? Well, we are working endlessly on video and images. We have tried a number of different ways of doing this. We've tried Apple TV, we've tried Google Cast or Chromecast, we've tried good old solid HDMI. We have tried multiple options to make this as easy as possible for our customers. And we hit a little stumbling block. We realized we didn't know what you want. I'm sat here talking to my developers going, I don't know, what's the best way of doing it? And they're looking at me and I'm looking at them. And I realized I don't know enough about how you want to use SOLOstudio Pro to cue videos and images. And so we're going to be running a survey. You can scan this QR code now using your mobile phone, if you're not obviously using your mobile phone to do this or watch this, and you can essentially fill in that survey. It asks for very basic information. It's completely anonymous. Please be honest, okay? Because the more honest you are, the better this update will be when it arrives. We do have a number of different prototypes in the background in the office that we are playing with, and that we have got to work more or less how I would imagine it working best. But I want to know what way you want to use it. So we'll be asking you things from how often you use video and images to whether you use them at all. Check out the survey, please complete it. We'd really, really appreciate it because ultimately it helps guide and shape what SOLOstudio becomes and makes it a better product for you, ultimately. So the more survey results we get, the better. That survey is going to be live for the next couple of weeks because I want to give people plenty of time to think about their answers. There's some basic yes-nos, but there's also some longer answers, including some pie-in-the-sky stuff, which I want you to go wild and imagine the best possible system you could. Tell me what it is, and I am going to try my damn hardest to make it happen. So that is where we're up to with video and images. But we do have something else that I want to share with you. The Solo Awards. This is something that a friend suggested to me, and I thought, what a brilliant idea. Solo enables creativity. I showed this to Joel Dickinson, and he came up with this amazing idea with erasing a word on a card, and as you did, the music faded out in the background. And it was so, so good. I demoed it at Blackpool Magic Convention, and people lost their minds because it was this really simple but beautiful piece of magic. I mean, it wasn't magic, but it felt like magic. And so I want to introduce the Solo Awards, something available to all solo owners that celebrates creativity, ingenuity, beautiful routines that are cued using Solo, app hacks. If you find a really creative way of using app, please don't actually hack my app, but if you find a really creative way of using SOLOstudio Pro, share it with us, because I'd love to see what crazy things you're coming up with. And if you come up with any incredible accessories, we've already released our Quick Clip, which is a free 3D printable download. But if you create something yourself, let us know, because we would love to see it. The Solo Awards will be announced on Facebook. I'll be pushing it out personally, as well as obviously on our Instagram and social channels, so you can jump on board. And if you own Solo and have come up with a crazy idea that you think is just so bloody good, you need to share it with the world, please send it to us. There will be some pretty good prizes. I'm willing to give away $250 to the best ideas. We'll be opening it up to a public vote so people can decide on what the best idea they think it is, and I'm just going to give them $250. Not in store vouchers, not in crypto, in actual money. Yeah, so you can spend it on whatever you want, okay? But $250, the Solo Awards will be live, so I really hope that gets you excited and gets you thinking about the amazing ways you can use Solo and SOLOstudio Pro. Now, while Aaron recovers from falling off his chair, which I so wish you could see this, we're going to dive straight into the Q&A section, and hopefully there has been some questions and people have got these mad ideas about how to use Solo. So I'm going to welcome Aaron Calvert to the stage, who has been diligently sat by his computer, queuing all of this and making it happen. This is all of him. I am rubbish at this sort of stuff. He's just put a mic on me and told me to speak, and so that's what I've done. But ladies and gentlemen, Aaron Calvert. There he is.
Where's my walk-on music,
Oh,
mate?
I'm so sorry. I've not got it ready for you. I'm sorry. We were in a rush.
I mean, I'm slightly nervous. There's no one checking that they can hear me now, so I've got no idea. But
please comment because we can see the comments. So if you could let us know if you can't hear Aaron. But have we got any questions?
Great, we do.
Go for it.
So, first one is there a way to export all the tracks and settings that you've got in the app before you upgrade? We knew this one was coming.
So this is a catch-22, because the scenario that you would need that setting for is the one that's about to happen. But in order to get that setting, this needs to happen. So it's a real awkward one. The only kind of answer I've got is ultimately no. There isn't at the moment. You can't save your settings. But what we're hoping is in a future update, which won't disturb this, and I have spoken very strongly to our developers and said this cannot happen again, So I'm hoping in a future update we can roll out an export of all of your saved files so that then you can upload that to multiple devices. So you can upload it to your iPhone, you can upload it to another duplicate iPad, or you could just save it because, like me, you can be quite paranoid about this sort of stuff and you just want to save it. So yeah, so at the moment, no, I'm really sorry, there isn't a way you can save the settings, but we are actually working on it. It's on our dev list currently.
And I think one of the things around that as well, the concerns were obviously the linking of the files in the background.
Yeah.
So if you did export kind of a show file, whatever device you're importing it to has to have the same tracks, you'd have to relink them. So it's not as easy as people think. I think, you know, people are used to the technology of going, oh great, we export it, we import it here, or we save it here, and it's very different because you've got things linked.
Yeah, I think if anyone's used anything like Premiere Pro, it normally says, hey, what folder do you want me to look for this in? And then it's quite awkward and you have to try and find it, and then it tries to auto-find, and it doesn't always work even with a piece of Adobe software. So I think we're trying, the way that we've actually got a prototype of it working at the moment, but it's not 100% ready, which is why it's not in the release, is it actually saves a copy of all of your files to the save file. So then when the save file is re-uploaded, it brings in all of the tracks that were saved anyway. Now, the downside to that is it creates a huge update file because it's full of all the tracks, it's full of all the settings, so it is a massive file, which is why it hasn't been rolled out just yet, because we're trying to work on a better way of it actually working.
Great. I think the sort of archive version where you get everything in, I think is the best approach, really.
Cool.
So we've got another one. Can you duplicate a show and therefore just change the music?
No, you can't duplicate a show. There's a reason for that currently, and that's purely because of the way that files are currently linked in the back end to the shows. Because obviously if you imagine the app as having multiple layers, we have multiple shows, and then we have layers sat on top of those multiple shows that control the triggers for each one of those cues inside each show. So if we were to duplicate that, we would have to duplicate all of the triggers, and then that would duplicate the RFID tags data, and then it could get really messy, and you could start accidentally queuing things. So at the moment, we've not allowed the duplication of shows. It was something someone sent to me quite recently, actually, and I thought, God, that is a good idea. I wish I'd thought of that. And duplicating tracks as well. So they are both on our radar as well. We're trying our best to get as many updates out as we can. I mean, to put it into perspective, these updates alone have cost 4 times more than the revenue gained from the sale of SOLOstudio Pro so far. Which kind of...
If you look back in the presentation and watch it on demand, you can see how many versions of Pro are out there. You do the rest. You do the rest. We're not doing it for you.
It's good. Anyway, yeah.
The next one is amazing updates. Have you...
thanks.
Great, there we go.
We on there?
Multiple shows is a game changer.
Yeah.
But ABBA though.
Oh, all right. Right. I don't know who you are, but I will find you. And I'll disable your solo. No, I can't do that. I can't do it. I'm just joking.
You mentioned the firmware update as well. So where can people find out about the sort of firmware updates for the hardware?
It's a great question. The firmware update will be posted on our support page. Obviously, that's basically our hub for any help and advice you need using Solo. So we'll be adding a firmware section to that page where we'll be giving detailed instructions of how to update the firmware on your device. It's relatively simple to do, but I'm going to create a video that actually step-by-step shows you so you can follow along at the same time so that you can do exactly what you need to in order to update the firmware. So, yeah, there you go.
Which rolls us in nicely to our next question. Looks incredible. What support, /teaching, is available to people who are not so tech savvy?
Not so tech savvy. Well, you're going to enjoy the questionnaire, my friend, whoever you are. So if you're not tech savvy, don't worry. Again, on the support page, there's our video tutorials, which currently stands at about 35 to 40 videos. I can't even remember anymore. I filmed so many of them. I will be filming more, obviously, to cover all of the new updates that will be rolled out by the end of the week. So I'm hoping those updates, those videos will be online by the end of next week, just to give people time to familiarise themselves with the changes to the app and the functions and just have a play. Push some buttons and see what happens. But don't worry, it's going to be very difficult to break it, but just have a play with those settings. The video will be online. I'm hoping by the end of next week to actually take you step by step through all the settings inside groups.
This one's, there's a few questions in here that are really specific. If you've got those specific questions, contact Sam directly. This isn't the place for them. But
ideally not on Messenger. My Messenger gets swamped with it. So by all means, if you submit a ticket, I'll reply to you by email, or I can try and reply to these on our Facebook group. So I'll post the answers to all of these questions in one massive post on Facebook. So please don't message me. I will answer them all. We've got a copy of all of your questions. I'll post all of the answers on Facebook. So if you've asked a question, you can find the answer on there.
Last interesting one is there a way of finding out what original media or music was used in a tile because they've renamed the track to a show cue?
That's a really good... no. That's really
We needed the thinking music there, didn't we?
No, that's really... So I'm taking what they've done is they've imported, whoever you are, you've imported a music file, and then you've renamed it, and now you don't know what that piece of music is. That's what I get from it. Yeah. I would download yourself an app called Shazam, and I would Shazam that piece of music, and I would find out what it is.
One of the things for me in terms of like looking at files and looking at shows, you know, I'm a particularly organised person. I'm a spreadsheet kind of person, so I import the music into folders that I pre-design. So on the iPad, I create a folder called Solo Music, I know, revolutionary. Inside those folders, I have different shows currently that have the different types of music. So it's not sort of scattered throughout the iPad, and you can duplicate. If it is somewhere else on the iPad, you can copy it and put it into that folder, and that certainly helps when you're trying to go, oh, what was that track? And you can find it fairly quickly from there. But Shazam's also a
I mean, I do the same thing in a sense that obviously you saw on the iPad before. I have a royalty-free folder, which I used for this. I have a corporate section, and then I have a complete mess of files. So I totally understand what you're saying. Maybe in future updates we could think about having like a reset track name kind of button maybe that just takes it back to the original file name. Maybe that's a solution, but ultimately try and remember. Or Shazam!
So last question on that is on Friday, do they have to click update before it updates, or will it automatically update?
It depends on your settings in your app store. So if your app store is currently, you're the Apple geek here, you know this better than me. But inside go for it, Aaron.
So if you go into your settings, you can look up it. You can turn off automatically update apps. So if you are concerned that you're going to lose all your show files and you've not got time between now and Friday to update it, if you go in there, by all means contact me. It's Aaron Mark on the Facebook group. I'll happily link you to the Apple Genius Bar entry on that, but you can basically turn that off. It does mean you have to then go in and actually press update. So that will keep it functioning as it is currently, and nothing will change with Solo. You can continue to use it as is.
Absolutely, it will continue to work. It'll continue to work even if you don't update the app. Obviously, you just won't get the new features. And it's worth mentioning, I actually turn off automatic updates by standard, just because I use a number of different apps, from Magic apps to Show Cue apps to obviously SOLOstudio, and then all sorts of bits and pieces, things like iThump, for example, people out there. And I don't always want that automatically updated in case there is a bug in the update. So I always turn it off by default.
So what I've done is I actually went through and screenshotted the entirety of the Solo app. Now what's handy is,
that's cool.
You can screenshot the home screen with your tiles, and then you click into a tile, you screenshot the tile, and it's all in one screenshot. There's no scrolling, there's not moving around.
That was a good idea.
Well, that's because obviously from a user interface, it's always been designed to be easy, so you can see everything in one screen. So, you know, I think it was like 27 screenshots or something like that, and the show was rebuilt. And I've been beta testing it, so I had to do this months ago, and it was, it's come a long way, and I think the updates are worth the headache now, because what's coming, particularly with the URL stuff, is amazing.
Yeah, the URL stuff. If you're not familiar with The Stranger or Ellipsis, two incredible apps, which, like I say, get in touch with Jonathan Levitt, The Stranger app. You will get a unique URL that you can put into SOLOstudio, and honestly, I mean, if I could show you some of the messages Jonathan sent me about this, some of them are quite explicit, because he is so excited about this, because it is game-changing, because all of a sudden you don't have to rely on a sound tech or an assistant to do all this work for you. the combination of the 3 apps are all working together to create ultimately this show experience, this piece of magic that wouldn't be possible without an assistant otherwise.
Yeah, and I know that. Spoiler alert, thanks for giving away the secret.
Sorry.
But what I think, and just to sort of enter myself into the awards here, with finishing off your idea with the CD, is if you combine that tag with the CD, with an RFID on it, you scan it onto it, you can get perfect timing going, which means that now you negate the buffering, you can now place it slowly, dramatically into the CD player, close the lid, and hit play perfectly for it to come out of there. But that's
get
just
yourself
theatrics.
Get yourself entered into the awards, Aaron.
That's
well
it. I think that's probably about time. So I'm going to vanish off for the end of the
Perfect.
show. And
Thank you, mate.
yeah, leave you to it.
Finally, I'm going to put that QR code back on screen so that you can see, obviously, you've got that. He's fallen off his chair again. This is incredibly professional. Yeah, we've put that QR code straight on screen for you. Please scan it. Please take part in the survey. Let us know what you think, how you're going to use video and images. I am desperate to get this working. I really am, because I want it in my show as well. And that's something I need to reiterate to everyone. I am a Solo customer. You know, I've probably spent more money on Solo than anyone, but I can almost guarantee that. And ultimately, I use SOLOstudio Pro, which is why when this version comes out on Friday, it 100% works, because I am so particular about making sure it works. But I want to thank you for tuning in, for watching this on possibly one of the hottest days of the year here in the UK. To our international friends, thank you for tuning in at all different hours. 11 a.m. I think you are in the States at one point, and 2 p.m. in another. But thank you for tuning in. I really, really appreciate it. I appreciate you as customers as well. We've got an amazing group on Facebook that is full of people coming up with really cool ideas, some really great concepts, which is why things like the Solo Awards are something just from me to my customers to say thank you for being awesome, for creating all these incredible things, coming up with all these amazing ideas, and for sharing Solo with other performers and your friends, because I am so passionate about this project and what it can do and where it could go in the future. And I'm just so pleased that it's had the reception it's had off people. It's got, like I say, an incredible customers. And I'm genuinely excited about seeing what else we can do with this. So thank you very much for watching. My name's Sam, and take care.